Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about how I edit my photos. We are going to do a little photo shoot later today, so I thought it'd be the perfect time to go through how I edit and what I use and what exactly I do. I edit all of my photos for Instagram in Lightroom mobile and Lightroom for desktop. Absolutely love the mobile version. It makes it so easy. It's so powerful. Plan my feed this way by using the mobile app, and then I also use the desktop app when I'm editing pictures from my DSLR. When I'm editing RAW, I prefer to use the desktop version, which you have to subscribe and pay for, but the mobile version is completely free, which is awesome, especially if you're very new to editing and you're not ready to invest yet in a program. All my iPhone photos right on my phone in Lightroom mobile, and is the most powerful app you can use to edit. You have so much control over editing all the color, more control in VSCO, another program I love, but you have even more control of the colors in Lightroom mobile. I started learning how to edit photos years and years and years ago. I studied art and design. I've learned a lot of color theory. So I've been using, these different computer programs. I started using Photoshop when I was 16, which is 11 years ago now. I'm familiar with it, but I only started using Lightroom less than 2 years ago, and it is an absolute game changer.
Now
I've developed my own presets. My edit, I start with one of my presets and then I maybe tweak it. Unless I'm doing a new color theme, which I like to try editing in new colors. There are still so many colors I haven't really had the chance to edit with yet, like yellow. I think yellow is really the only one I really haven't done that much of. Unless I'm developing a whole new color, which now I've pretty much done all of the colors now. I start with one of my presets, and then if it needs some tweaks, I go in from there. I'm gonna show you how I developed my presets, how I edit in Lightroom, my go-to things I like to adjust, and explain all the little things that you can change in there. When I first started editing on my phone, pretty much all iPhone photos, I started out by using VSCO. VSCO is a really great way to start. Lightroom is just the best. It's the most powerful you're going to get, most possibility in what you can do, and also the other great advantage to using Lightroom is the ability to save your editing and the steps you do as presets and use them on more and more photos over again to expedite the editing process. And this is how I'm able to take high quality images from my, on our DSLR and edit within the same day and post something that same day. So it's really improved my workflow. So I really suggest, if you're looking to quickly start using Lightroom and saving your settings, or you can go to my shop, you can get my presets for your iPhone. So they're great for iPhone photos. So you can head over there and start out with those, or you can start playing around and make your own. So next I'm gonna show you how I edit on desktop when I import our raw images from our DSLR. If you're not already shooting in RAW and you're shooting with the DSLR, you better shoot in RAW. Don't shoot in JPEG. Go to your settings, change it to RAW. You're going to thank me later. You get so much more color data when you shoot in RAW, so much more to the image. So change that now and start shooting in RAW. Into Lightroom, I go over to this panel called Develop. So you're in Library, you go to Develop, and then I go through all the photos from my recent import and I select the ones that I like. So I select them by hitting the P on my keyboard. So I hit the P on my keyboard and it flags it as a pick, and after I've done that I go to here and I go flagged. And so it just gives me my select. I pretty much always use my presets as a starting point for my edits, like today. So I'm gonna go over today all of the adjustments that I typically make to my photos, and these are how I formulated a lot of my presets. So let's jump into it. This button here shows you the before and after. So you can see that here. But you can also just always go over here, reset your edits. First up, I usually adjust all of the highlights and shadows. I always try to shoot a little bit underexposed on my photos, as you saw here. And the reason you want to do that, so it's a little bit overexposed back here, but I'm not too worried about it. And you want to make sure to shoot in RAW, so you won't get all of the color data. So if you're not shooting in RAW, shoot in RAW. But see how this is like pretty dark, but you still have this color data here, right? So that's back there, and that's why you shoot it underexposed. So you can still, you know, this is pretty dark, but we kind of want to brighten it all up. A lot of the times that I do that is by this section here. So this is how I really control and bring out those shadows again. So by pulling the shadows way up, and the blacks way up, that's gonna bring those out. And then see, if I left the highlights in the middle, see how then that's super bright? So I pull those down. So then that brings the detail there. Controlling this is going to allow you to see more details in the photo. That's why I like to pull those up a lot, and then brightening it a little bit, and then that you can do that on the exposure, but you don't want to go too far on the exposure. So you just, it'll get, you know, too overexposed, but it's a great way to brighten. And then you can reduce the contrast, and that will kind of mute it out on the contrast. Or if you up the contrast, it'll kind of bring a lot more clarity basically to the photo. I also like to use the actual clarity tool here. That will really bring some more sharpness as well. But if you like a dreamier look, you want to reduce the clarity here. I like it to be a little bit more in focus, so I like to up the clarity a little bit. Just if you want things, the colors to be more vibrant, use this tool, Vibrance, and pull it up because it's a little bit more subtle. Whereas if you did saturation, it really kind of like gets out of whack. And sometimes you might like that, but I personally don't like that. And what I like to do to balance is I'll maybe pull down the saturation a little bit and then up the Vibrance back up. But I didn't really need to do that on here. The last thing you want to do is kind of double check your temperature. And normally it'll kind of auto correct, and here I didn't really change it, but if you want it to be a little bit warmer feeling, you're going to pull it up. So it's going to make it a little warm, or if you want to make it more cool, turn it down the blue. So I'm going to reset it there, and then I made it a little bit more green. So sometimes if you were trying to tackle like the greens, you might need to bring this tint down more into the green. But if you want a more pink hue, and I kind of like the pink hues too, so you can control that through here. Another tip is if you want to reset a setting, double tap on the title of whatever you're resetting, and it will reset it. So you just double tap and reset. So here, double tap, reset. The next thing I'll do after kind of bringing out these, then I'll go over to the colors. And I generally don't ever edit in isolation. I always have a reference photo over here. This photo, I'm either trying to match the lightness of the kind of neutrals, or I'm trying to match the blues. And if you haven't watched my video on how I color match and how I get consistency, go ahead and watch that first, because that's really important in having a goal and what you're trying to meet for your colors. At least this is how I work and how I keep things super consistent. So if you haven't already watched that video, go watch that video. I normally start with the skin tone. How I address skin tone, my skin tone tends to be controlled in the orange panel, so it just depends on the color of your skin. If you want to make yourself really tan, this is my trick to make you tan, is you just pull down the luminance of the orange, the red, or the yellow, whatever your skin tone is controlled, and that's going to either make you less tan or more tan. So that's my trick, and I usually bring down the saturation a little bit so then I'm not like too orange. In my other video, I talk about how I control the colors, whether I want it more red or more yellow, and how I control the hues, and so that's really crucial, but I talk about it in that color matching video. So again, if you haven't watched that, definitely go watch that. That's how I control having a nice tan. And how I control my hair. So sometimes, if you have blonde hair, sometimes it looks more yellow in pictures. And so how I combat that is going to the yellow tab, and I pull the luminance all the way up, and then I pull the saturation down a lot. And as you see, it'll also kind of usually control some of the greens and greenery in a photo. So you just have to kind of balance that. And then I'll go
You know, so I'll go through, do my edits on, I might not want the greens as green, but in here I kind of want to feel a little bit more tropical. So as you saw, it was my tropical preset. So I, wanted some more saturation. So I just kind of go through and pick my colors and adjustments all in here. The next thing I do is I address the sharpening and noise. And so generally I like to pull the color noise reduction up a little bit. That kind of fixes any issues you might have with your color adjustments. And then I like to add a little bit of noise reduction to the luminance, and that really kind of smooths things out, like your skin tone. I usually like your skin, it'll kind of smooth it out. And then for sharpening, so if you press Option while selecting the masking tool, it will show you where you're sharpening. So if you want to only sharpen the edges of your body and the outlines, you can mask it all the way up, and it'll really make you keep you that soft look on the inside that you made with the noise and color, but it will keep the edges of your form very sharp. So if I pulled that down, it's not as sharp. And then here, this detail panel shows you that, but that's a little trick, so how you can address that. After that, I might go into the split toning if I want to add a tint. And I talk about this in my color matching video, but basically, if you want to add a filter, you want to have your highlight and shadow color in the same part of the color wheel. But if you want to create kind of a more vintage contrast, then you want to have the highlights and the shadows in opposite parts of the color wheel. So see how this is going to create more of a contrast? But then if I want it to just kind of have that light filter, then I'm going to keep them in the same zone. But I really, when I like things to be bright and clear, I tend to go for a more purple. But if I'm doing sunsets, I might make it more pink. But if I want it to feel really warm, then I'll select something on the red and orange. I pretty much don't usually go and use the post-crop vignetting in the effects panel. But in the dehaze tool, though, I do like to use sometimes. I don't want to use it on this photo, but it'll create either more contrast or kind of fade things out. You just have to be careful with this tool. But I like it if you like more contrast in your photos, I do like to use this, but I want to keep things nice and bright, so I'm not going to use it on this photo. Now that we have addressed the basics, we've addressed the split toning, and we've addressed the colors, so now the last thing I'm going to do is go into the tone curve. I pretty much just like to stick within here. But these, if you want to bring more information to the really highlighted areas, you're going to pull this down. Or if you really want to brighten it up, you're going to pull it up. So this is how you're going, it's sort of an extension. This is basically an extension of this up here, is how I see it. It's just an easy way to think of it. But if I want to pull the darks up and not have it be so contrasted, again, I want it to feel light and bright, so I'm going to pull these darks up more, pull a little bit of the shadows, and then I want it to stay bright, so I'm going to pull the lights up. But I can make it super bright and super contrasty by pulling it up, or I could have it feel a little bit more even and light by pulling it down. So this is fun to play with, but you have to decide whether you want it to be a more contrasted photo or you want it to be more even. Bringing these down like I did before keeps it more even, but this is how I keep balance by keeping that contrasted look by playing with this panel here. But I do this as a last step, so I really suggest you wait until the end of the photo to do that. So this is the before and this is the after. I hope you guys found that part really helpful. These are pretty much all my basic things that I go to when editing a photo pretty quickly.
So thank you so much, and if you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and go check me out on Instagram if you're not following me there already. That's where I hang out every single day. You can follow what I'm up to daily. So thanks again, guys.